Agit Erev Shabbos.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Around the Shabbos Table. I am Ahron Wohlgelernter, your host, with my co-host, Rabbi Wohlgelernter, a.k.a. the Father. Haven't done that in a while. It feels good to get that back out. Last week we discussed, we'll jump right into it this week again. Last week we were discussing Avram Avinu and the concept of outreach, the concept of the way, really, and the theories that he had behind his outreach and what he did and why he did it. And we came out with the fact that he loved Hashem and he loved people. And when you love Hashem, you love people, you want to look out for them and give them what they don't have, what they're lacking. Avram felt so strongly this spiritual lacking of people, and he wanted to bring that back to them. So that's a concept that we sort of hashed out last week, and it's also very practical and also very theoretical at the same time. But this week we want to sort of start with a question to get you to think and to get me to think. And so I pass it over to you, Daddy, to just start off with a question to think about, some food for thought.
Okay, I want to develop something, and then I'm gonna throw it out as a food to thought thing. It's a very beautiful medrash that Paro had 3 advisors. He had Yisro, he had Bilam, and he had Eov. So when he came up with his plan of destroying the Jewish people, so Yisro was very uncomfortable, and he said, I could never participate in this. He picked himself up and he ran away. Medrash tells us that he was rewarded handsomely for this, besides the fact that he had grandchildren that were sitting in the Lishkas HaGazis and the Chamber of Hewn Stone in the Sanhedrin, but he also ended up with a son-in-law like Moshe, and he also ended up with a parsha in the Torah with his name. Me'idach Gisa, from the other side, we have Bilam. That Bilam was almost like surprised that was it, like that's all we're doing. Like Bilam was really into it. He bought into the whole program, and he was bought into the program of destroying the Jews, and Bilam ended up getting destroyed by the Jews. Eov was the guy in the middle. Eov unquestionably, Job, right, the famous Job, unquestionably was totally against such an idea. But Eov felt that he couldn't say anything. He was quiet. And the Talmud says because Eov was quiet, that's why he suffered through the way he did. There's another midrashic statement that says that God gave him boils and said to him, so he started to cry. It hurt.
Gave Eov boils.
Yeah. So he started to cry. So he said, what are you crying for? Because it hurts. So he said, but Eov, you can't do anything. You can't change anything. What's the crying going to do? So he said, well, I'm crying because it hurts. He said, that's exactly the point. When something hurts, you have to cry. And the title on Eov wasn't that he didn't pick himself up and run away, wasn't that he didn't stand up and protest, but at least cry. I remember when they were throwing out the Jews from Gaza. And there was some talk that politically it was a necessary move. And as horrific as it was a necessary move. People were banging on the soldiers and on the policemen and on the black suit guys that were throwing people at. And they were following orders and doing what they were employed by the government, and they had to do what they had to do. So somebody said that there's no question they have to do what they have to do. You're in the military, you have to do what the military says, and if they say throw them out, you don't have a choice. But it should be with a cry. It should be with a kvetch. Not just with a sense of, reporting for duty. There has to be a sense of kvetch. I'm wondering why we need a whole thing called kiruv professionals, why we need kiruv movements, why we need people. When you ask people, what do you want to do with your life? I want to go into kiruv. I love doing kiruv. What does said, why is there such a thing called kiruv? Why isn't there a thing called Jews that are looking out to Jews and that are just broken and crying over the fact that there are people that don't know the Ribono Shel Olam? Why aren't I so excited about what I do that it's not that, I want to make you religious also. I want to share with you the beauty that I have. I want to share with you the beauty of my Shabbos. I want to share with you the beauty of my family. I want to share with you all of the amazing things that I have that the Ribono Shel Olam gave us through His Torah. I want to share them with you. And I'm in pain. I'm crying over the fact that you don't have them. Because it's not just that you're missing something in your life, but you're committing, you're doing something against the Ribono Shel Olam. The Ribono Shel Olam put Shabbos, Kedusha Shabbos into the world. When somebody's driving on Shabbos, you're taking away, you're impairing the Kedusha Shabbos. Why don't I feel enough about Shabbos, about the Ribono Shel Olam, about your neshama, that this becomes almost the centerpiece of my life? Whether I'm in, and we mentioned this a little bit last week, but whether I'm in the workplace or whether I'm in my shul or whether I'm just in my neighborhood, why aren't I reaching out to other people without being a professional, without getting any money for it, without saying that this is my job? Why aren't I feeling that? And when I started to think about it, as I mentioned to you, when I started to think about it, then I said, we go to the kotel. So in the kotel, we have a halacha that you have to tear kriya, you have to rip. And if you haven't seen it for 30 days, you have to tear kriya. We do. We look at the halacha, we say, do I really have to do it? And then we try to figure out, maybe I'll go on a Friday, this way I won't have to do it. And Motzei Shabbos, you don't have to do it. And maybe you don't, and then I come up with myths of times when I think you don't have to do it, but really do have to do it. And maybe if I sell you my clothes, so then they're not my clothes, so then I can't really tear them. Why aren't we standing by the kosel with tears coming down our eyes, saying this is where the mikdash was? Why, when we go to the Has Promenade and we look over and we see the whole thing, or you stand up in a place by Hebrew University and you look over and you see mamash the footprint of the Makam HaMikdash, why aren't we broken? Now, the first experience that I ever had with that was with somebody whose granddaughter I'm teaching actually in 7 days, very interesting. It was with Rav Eli Teitelbaum, and what was amazing to me was that when he looked at it, he just burst out crying. And he's been running tours. At that point in his life, he had been doing it for 20, 30 years already. And he just burst out crying. Why aren't we like that? What's missing? So I'm not asking a question really about kiruv. I'm asking a question about our connection, to our emotional connection. What has happened to us?
Right, and the fact that the two questions are coming back to back really just says that kiruv, at its source with Avram Avinu, but for us, is an expression of our love of God and our love of what we're doing. I think if you simplify it to that, and we could take heat for this, but I think if you simplify it to that, you don't need initiatives. And I'm gonna say specific things. Like, I don't think you need an initiative to teach people how to do kiruv. Maybe kiruv you need to teach people, but to teach people how to be nice, to teach people how to be kind, to teach people how to make an invite and break the ice and have somebody over for a Shabbos meal. I don't think you really need to teach anybody that. I don't think you need a professional for that.
Well, I think you do. And I think that's the problem. In other words, I think they're holding in such a place that it's not natural to us.
Oh, you're saying today we need.
Yeah.
But I'm saying at its core, if you simplify kiruv, so then you don't, what do you need to, let me teach you how to have somebody who's less observant at your Shabbos table. What? Okay, so you're going to teach me how to be a normal human being? Okay, great. I'm in. But what do I need it for? Because again, if the premise of kiruv is I love Hashem and I love my mitzvahs and I love the people that I want to help, then I don't really know why we need that. Now, I do understand that there are people, with this being said, so to lessen the heat on us or on me, but I understand that if you're going to do this full time, you're going to give your entire life for it, be moser nefesh, to do outreach, there's also a second thought on it, on what outreach is today, like post-Holocaust outreach or American outreach is. And my father-in-law once explained this to me. He said, there's different types of kiruv. There's people who set up a Shabbos table and set up learning and say, Kol dichven yetziv yecha, anybody who needs, come, and we have a community and we have good things and events and it's important. But there's people who won't even hear that message. And there's people who are being lahavdil, I guess, being put onto a train and being shipped away into like American assimilation, into nothingness, and in terms of spirituality. And somebody's got to be there and stand on the side and just grab them off the train. And for that, you need somebody who's really being meiser nefesh, their time and energy. And perhaps you need to teach them, you got to teach them, for the mashal's sake, you have to teach them where the train is and where it goes and what hours it leaves. And you have to teach them how and where and what. I can understand that.
I can understand that also.
I can understand if there's two parts of outreach. But to teach me how to have somebody at my Shabbos meal, because I'm religious and they're not, I think is lacking in what you're saying, and I'm going to add something also. It's lacking in, do I cry by the Kaisel? Do I care what's going on? Am I connected to the Rebbeinu Shalom at all? That's one. But I also think, and this might be also contentious, but I also think that it's related to how we relate to people who are not religious. As a Jewish community, we've created a system of good and bad that sometimes is hard to see past, and we might convince ourselves that somebody. I'm talking about the Jewish community as a whole, and I think that if we can break this and say everyone is the same, some people keep Shabbos and some people don't. Now there's a playing field so I can invite you, because I'm not degrading you by inviting you to my Shabbos meal. I'm giving you opportunities. It's awesome. Just like it would be cool if there were no halachic boundaries, that you can invite me to your parties. That would be awesome to experience. Why not?
There is a section of our world, of the Orthodox world, that is petrified of that word kiruv, and it's an anathema to them.
I am also, but I think for a lav mitameh, I don't think for the same reason. So explain yourself, and then so what do you think, or what have you experienced was the apprehension towards the word kiruv?
So the apprehension is because I can't judge you, and I can't judge that what you're doing is bad, and that at the end of the day, if I unfold this more, and I'll take heed for this one, but at the end of the day, there are many pathways to God, and there's Orthodox strict observance, there's less observance, there's non-observance, there's a loving Israel. There are many pathways, and all of them are good and acceptable. They're all good and acceptable. It's not you don't have it any better than anyone else. You have your way, which seems to conform to the Torah. They have their way, which doesn't seem to conform to the Torah. So
it's a classic halachic literature.
Right. So correct. So why are you trying to convince them to keep Judaism like you do? They're keeping Judaism like they do. So there's no room to say that what you are a wonderful Jew, but you're doing something wrong, and that you're doing something wrong. A, you're missing something amazing in your life. B, you're bringing negative energy into our world, and C, you're hurting our Father.
Right. It's the issue of being able to identify truth, an objective truth, and identify MS and truth, and that's where perhaps sometimes we fall on that and we say everybody's true. This is your truth, in a sense.
Right. So I think the reason that's happened is because we live in a world, especially in America, we live in a world that is now spending so much time on that's really a center core. The theme of morality and ethics is that there are many different types, and that you have to be able to accept everybody. And being an ethical person, being a moral person, is accepting the fact that there are many ways to skin the cat. We don't. That's a pluralistic view of the world. We don't have that by definition. We don't have that. We don't. But that doesn't mean that I can throw a stone at you. But what that means is that I can't accept internally, not externally. Externally is a different story, but internally I can't accept that this is okay. If it's not okay, then I have to do something about it.
Right. I love spectrums and like a linear way of looking at it. So if you see that, if you sort of we both mentioned two sides of a coin. And I think what we really want to fall is in the middle. We said that there are those from perhaps there's a worldview that doesn't allow us to appreciate kiruv. There's two worldviews that don't allow us to appreciate kiruv. On one side, it's you don't keep Shabbos. It's too strong of a line. I can't accept you. You can't keep Shabbos. You're not a good person because you don't keep Shabbos. And that's not true. But that might be a worldview that could hurt the ability for an individual to engage in kiruv or in outreach. And on the other side, there are those that there is no line. And you're right. You're true. You don't keep Shabbos. That's okay because that's what you want to do. So either one of those worldviews is going to affect here how we engage, how we relate to outreach in Judaism, and also, just back to your point, also how we relate to our own Judaism. Because if our own Judaism is, on the one hand, I'm only doing it so that I'm always right, it's not so connected here. And if there's other choices out there, and I can do anything that anybody's doing, and I choose, I'm going to do this one. Those are not very strongly connected. So it's all of this, pardon the pun here, but is to stay connected to our Judaism helps us understand how we relate to other people who keep Judaism perhaps differently than us, and how then we relate to the opportunities we can provide for them. Yeah. So I just like seeing that on a scale kind of thing where what we're suggesting and prescribing here is somewhere right in the middle, and we can now define that more. What is it? So what is good? Or unless you want to spend more time on what some of the negative things you've seen. And
yeah, but I just want to I want to stop using the word kiruv, and I want to use the word of caring about another person. See, I'm not trying to convince you to become religious. I'm not trying to make you religious. I care about the fact that that I know that you're missing something in your life, and that I want to help you to get over that. I want you to be exposed to that. I want to try to show it to you. You'll make your own decisions. There's no question about it. But at the end of the day, my responsibility, if we say Kol Yisrael Raven Zelazem, my responsibility to you is to be able to expose that to you. Now, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't know. Like you say, you're far on the train to nowhere. So I'm going to invite you to come to
spiritually, right?
Right. I'm going to invite you, but I'm going to invite you for Shabbos, or I'm just going to hang out with you, or I'm going to be friends with you. I'm just going to worry about you and wait 10 years till the golden opportunity when you have your first child, and we can talk about having a bris. And I'm just kidding, but I can do all of that.
Well, then long-term relationships come in. It's not about the quick fixes. It's not about the nows. Once you're focused on the other person, as a person,
because I care about you. Because when we say the mitzvah of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, we're treating it like the mitzvah of tearing kriya, in the sense that okay, I have a mitzvah of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Let's open up the manual. How do I fulfill that mitzvah? Also, part of that mitzvah is to invite somebody for Shabbos. Okay, fine, I'm going to invite you for Shabbos, because that's the fulfillment of the mitzvah of V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. No, but I'm looking at you, and I see. Sometimes you see a person that's in pain. A person's like got a dark life. They're in pain. Things have happened. You just want to reach out to them. You just want to help them, right? You want to, you feel so bad when you see them. Loyalino, a person loses a child, and then they lose their job, and then then this happens, and you see the person's life is just crumbling. Every time you look at that person, tears well up in your eyes. You feel terrible about them. Why don't we feel that? And I'm not really
in a spiritual sense, right?
Spiritual sense. When I see you, that you have taken that train off to nowhere land, why isn't my heart breaking? Now, that doesn't mean I'm doing anything about it yet.
And it doesn't mean I necessarily need to, meaning I don't need to stand by the train and pull you off, but I need to care, and that's number one.
That's where we started. I need to fetch. My heart needs to break. When I, one of the things that I hope that I can pride myself on that in all of my years in America, that I came with a sensitivity to Kedusha Shabbos, and I left with that sensitivity of Kedusha Shabbos, though I had to be civil, I had to handle and deal with so much non-Kedusha Shabbos around me. But that every time, I can tell stories, but every time I would see somebody, somebody would drive past me and wave on Shabbos. Right, I remember the day that Rabin was shot. It was on Motzoi Shabbos here. And it was
Shabbos morning.
And a guy swung his car around. We were walking out of the old shul. Right, so we were down the stairs in the professional center. So down the back stairs that were by the
parking lot.
By the residence inn.
Right.
So we walk down the stairs. The guy swings by and he says, Rabbi, a rabbin was killed. And right there, it was like I was a deer in the headlight. I didn't know what to do. Like, I can't have that information, Shabbos Kodesh, and you just got it off the radio. in your car. And it just, it made the death of Rabin, it just made it like magnified it to a place that it was just so powerfully heavy to me. It exploded inside of me. But it wasn't just about the fact that a Yid was killed, but that there was a Yid who was Machal Shabbos to let me know that that he was killed. And it's just, listen, I sit here, very few cars. I know very few cars. And a lot of them are military cars and security
police,
cars and, and Hatzalah and stuff like that. Because you can see from the driver as they drive by, that's a Hatzalah guy. But you have some here. There's some cars that drive by, and it's just so painful. I see kids on their phones on Shabbos. I saw the other day. I saw this past Shabbos. I saw a kid sitting, and oblivious to everybody around him. He was sitting. I shouldn't say sort of. He was sitting in the open, and he was on his phone. He was watching a movie. And just the kvetch. I didn't go over to the kid and smack him, and I also didn't go over to the kid and say to him, "Dude, what's going on?" Because I wasn't in that place. I don't know the kid. I just don't. There has to be a little bit more professionalism, a little more sensitivity to it, in order to be able to actually.
Sure, because it's about long term. It's not about the Shabbos now. Correct. It's about long term.
Correct. But step number one is that it's got to bother you, and that's not about kiruv. That's about caring about other people. And that's why I think that we got to get away from the word kiruv, not being mikarev you. I'm caring about you, and I'm caring about your neshama that's about to be lost, that maybe is lost on some level. But I'm caring about you. And I'm worrying. Right now, I'm worrying about how I can help you.
Right. Also, just for the listeners who know the shul and know Adat Yeshurun, and so you'll definitely be nodding your head as I say this. But when I grew up, I never knew there was a word kiruv. We didn't do kiruv. Our shul, and everybody knows this, was an Orthodox shul, is an Orthodox shul, and it's open and it's a very warm environment. So you may have people who are not keeping Shabbos the way you do, and who are coming to shul in different ways and modes of transportation. And there was never looking down. So whether you're a listener who does, it doesn't matter. The point is that you can all nod your head and say there was a warm environment on Shabbos specifically, which is the heat of the moment, let's say. It still was warm. And it was never about how can we make the other stop? How can we make the other keep it like us? It was how can we create an environment that the good is known, it's known what it is, and people want to do. And Baruch Hashem, I think that it was successful for lots of people. It wasn't in your face. There was serious Torah learning going on all the time in the shul. And if you wanted to come, you could come. And if you didn't, you didn't. And there were opportunities for all different levels as well. It wasn't just one level and that's it. There was everything, because there was an understanding of I care about you and I want to give you opportunities. And it could be that opportunity is too great and this one's good for you. We'll give opportunities to everyone. I remember that there was certain events that certain people came and they were very involved in. People who perhaps didn't come every Shabbos to shul, and all of a sudden this event, they were in, because there was a connection for everybody. And I remember that at those events, that's where you built your relationship, and Mommy built the relationship with people through those events, because that was how they were connected. That's how you're connected. And let's put a charge in. Let's charge it, whatever kind of charger you're using. And I think I think it's being lost a little bit. And I think as we pull further away from our connection with Hashem, and with the excitement and the love of our involvement in Torah and Judaism, I think that Kiruv becomes more of a separate, Kiruv, we need to name it, we need to box it needs to have professionals, because it needs to be done, rather than just rally the troops and people to understand that it is being done. If you live as a proud Jew, it is being done. Just to end off, this rant is that I don't live in a religious neighborhood, and Shabbos is, as you're describing here, with one for everyone, and we're a little scion of Shabbos within the greater community. But I feel that keeping Shabbos, walking outside, looking nice, walking to shul on time, saying hello to people. Again, not saying it's Shabbos, it's Shabbos, you want to come for Chulent. Like not doing any heavy Kiruv tactics, let's say, but just being from and making a Kiddush Hashem, and showing people that it's Geschmack to sein a Yid, and it's Geschmack to be a Jew, it of itself is doing something. I feel every Shabbos we chip away, and every Shabbos my kids go outside happy, and we're showing that there's something here.
I agree with you 100%. I want to say a few things. First of all, we do need a little professionalism, only in as much as there are ways to approach people with questions, people that are not on the train, to try to interest them on the train. So that, in that sense, some training is not a bad idea.
The train, you're saying the other way, yeah.
That's not a bad idea, but only on that level. That's just.
Well, it's like social tactics. Like, you got to teach people, if you're going to have an educator, so he needs to learn social tactics, how to deal with students and how to deal. Yeah.
Discipline.
Yeah, exactly. There's a chachma to being social, to being socially appropriate, how to offer that chulent.
Right. Second thing I want to say is that what happens if we change it, and we change this conversation? We're not talking at all about religion. We're not talking about religion. We're talking about drug addiction, which Kuli Alma, everybody agrees that drug addiction is not a good thing. Anybody who says that drug addiction is fine is
drug addiction, yeah,
is addicted, and they're just trying to justify themselves. Drug addiction is a problem. Okay, so when we see a person who is addicted to drugs,
what do we do? Right,
we cry. We feel really bad, and we try to figure out a tactical way. How can we get them to a rehab? How can we get them to talk to somebody? Let's change the scenario again, and let's talk about anger management. We see somebody who's got anger management problems. We feel really bad for them. What happens when we see somebody with a marriage and their marriage is dissolving, and we feel terrible for them, and we want to figure out, even if we're not close to them, is there some way that I could get a message to them, some way that we can get somebody? Who do we know that could talk to them to try to encourage them to go to counseling? We worry about people. All of a sudden comes religion, and we say, I can't
stop worrying, right?
But the reason is, rabbis say, because we have convinced ourselves that I'm okay, you're okay. And it's not that. This is not being judgmental. This is not judging other people. It's a fact. You're either following the Rebbeinu Shalom, you're an Eved Hashem, or you're not an Eved Hashem. And if you're not an Eved Hashem, so then there's something wrong in the world, because we weren't given a choice to be Avdei Hashem. We were created to be Avdei Hashem. And therefore we have to figure out a way that we have to spend our entire lives maybe never, ever influencing another person, but worrying about how we can do this. And the opportunity will appear, the opportunity will arise, that you will be able to do something for somebody. Because when you love somebody, so then you're constantly sensitive to the moment, that moment will happen. And what the point of today's, of this
The
rant,
pod, right?
we both had some, a good run of rant. But for me, the purpose of the whole thing is we got to rethink our heads.
Right. It's a symptom. If kiruv bothers you, whether you're the mikarev, you don't want to do outreach, nor do you want to be outreached. If you're on either side of the coin and it's bothering you, that's a symptom to something greater here, and that's showing that something's here, and perhaps we're suggesting that that's because of our connection. And if we worked on our connection, then we wouldn't have podcasts about kiruv as a word, as a theory and a worldview. Wouldn't have that because it would be being done. That's just how it would be an expression of our love for Hashem.
Yeah, I think we want to end the episode, but I'll leave with a little bit of a bomb. Whenever people talk about intermarriage and they talk about the old days, 50 years ago, 75 years ago of intermarriage, and they talk about how parents would sit shiva for their children, and they say it was such horror, like horror that can you believe it? They sat shiva for them. Was it the right tactic? I'm not sure. I don't think it really inspired anybody. But was it the right tactic? Yeah. Because it showed you cared.
That's a bomb. It's the right tactic for a person in their own personal avoda. They need to cry.
That's all I'm saying. Is
it the right expression that people should see and we should make a big deal?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. We could discuss that. But
is it better than where we are now?
Today, yeah.
It's better than where we are now than saying that we have to accept them. I don't want to lose my children. What does that mean? You've lost them.
Right. Or trying to, yeah. Yeah, that's it's definitely a strong point, and it hits home. Is
right. And yes, it's a bomb. It's leaving with a bomb.
Right.
But I'm trying to wake myself up a little bit into just this sense of that maybe my relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom and maybe my relationship with other people, maybe that needs to be reworked, and that when I'm doing the things that I do, so I'm doing them for the Rebbeinu Shalom. I'm doing them because I want more light in this world. Maybe that kind of stuff has to be kicking around my head and all of our heads when we do the things we do.
All right. Thank you very much, and thank you guys for listening. And stay tuned for another episode. And Pass the Chulent.
To somebody who doesn't yet know how to eat cholent.
Very good.